Get real, child. Let's get real.
Quite simply, finely ground rock dust from many available sources has a broad spectrum of minerals and trace elements that are essential for life on Earth. Without remineralization with rock dust to create a better environment and clean up our food supply chain, we will not live in a world of abundance. Plants without adequate nutrition become hosts for disease and insects. Sick plants attract microbes and various parasitic organisms. Plants that are unhealthy cannot maximize their potential for carbon sequestration and serve an unhealthy food continuum towards a negative existence. Unhealthy plants make for sick animals and people who eat them, both lacking the nutrients they need. It's all a cycle that needs to be healthy in order to have healthy outputs, which translates to a better environment and higher quality of life. We're in a dark situation with our soils and must take action now. The future can be full of life with just a little sprinkle of rock dust. So let's rock and get real.
Did you know the largest desert fuels the lungs of our Earth? That's right. NASA satellite Calypso revealed that every year an enormous amount of dust takes a transatlantic journey over 1,600 miles from the Saharan Desert to the Amazon rainforest. 132 million tons of dust, to be precise. Another 43 million tons settles to remineralize the rich marine life of the Caribbean Sea. An ancient African lake bed in Chad provides much of the 22,000 tons of phosphorus minerals that actually take this long trip over the ocean to nourish Amazonian plants and trees. So, dust from the world's largest desert actually feeds the world's largest rainforest. Wow, that is a trip. Now back to you, David.
We're going to take a little more time in this episode to break this rock dust down, because without rock minerals, life cannot exist. Not all rocks are created equal, though. They vary widely in mineral compositions, with many rocks largely lacking in vital nutrients required for a rich soil and nourished plant life. Some of the best soils originate from silicate rock, which is deep within the earth. Volcanic activity is spewed out as volcanic hardening at or near the surface. This process is continuous, constantly establishing new surface rock from molten rock stores below the crust. Weathering by wind and water breaks the silicate into small pieces, which microorganisms then attack, extracting nutrients. These microorganisms leave behind clay particles so small they flow like water. Gritless and smooth, clay has a cation exchange capacity, meaning it can hold nutrient ions. Organisms break down the rocks to extract nutrients and make other compounds, often using CO2 through photosynthesis. In fact, some of the world's most fertile soils exist where nature has already broken down rock matter for the life forms that feed on it. For example, glaciers that have crushed rock into powder and where volcanoes have scattered ash and rock particles. For glacial rock dust, this process began thousands of years ago during the last glacial maximum, as vast ice sheets, at least a half-mile thick, cut deep into the bedrock, erasing what topsoil preceded it. So we can really learn from the glacial past to help solve the present deficiencies in our soil today. The Earth has an abundance of rock, but the best type of rock for remineralizing the Earth is basalt. Basalt has a unique wide array of nutrients, and it's shown to deliver significant improvement agriculturally. It is one of the most common rocks on Earth, but it is not distributed uniformly across the earth. It's a volcanic rock, so there's an abundance of it in areas where there's been volcanic activity. The role magnetism plays in the world of soil and plants, as in chemistry generally, is important and can be quite mysterious. Basalt has unusual characteristics, including a property called paramagnetism, which is having a set of physical characteristics, including a slight reaction to a magnetic field and no permanent magnetism or independent generation of a magnetic field. Broad-spectrum rock dust with high paramagnetic qualities like basalt builds soil's ability to sequester carbon long-term. It's one treatment that is not in the conventional soil science library, as it's not a proprietary product that can be sold for a high profit. Compared to the lush, richer soils of mountainous volcanic islands, islands formed from limestone have lower soil fertility. Limestone and dolomite can also be great for our soils because they contain concentrations of calcium and magnesium. If the soil is deficient in magnesium, it needs dolomite. For calcium deficiencies, limestone is the answer. A combination of nutrients in our rock provides the greatest foundation for Earth's ecosystem. Measuring the hydrogen or pH level of soil or water is easy, and for many years scientists considered it to be the most relevant thing to measure in soil. However, William Albrecht, acclaimed soil scientist, determined though that although near neutral pH is preferable, it's important that basic elements are in the right proportion as well for optimal soil chemistry. Soil becomes increasingly acidic as rock nutrients leach out with rainfall. Soil that is either too acidic or too basic does not allow plants to grow well. As important as biology may be for healthy soil, chemistry is also key. The so-called cation exchange capacity of soil measures the soil's ability to hold positive nutrient ions such as calcium and magnesium to clay particles and humus. Albrecht was a pioneer in determining the ideal levels of nutrients in the soil, observing that a mix of about 68% calcium ions and 12% magnesium with lesser amounts of phosphate and potassium and others allows for optimal growth of many types of crops. Sadly, most of the world's soils are so demineralized, like in the American Southeast, soils simply don't have adequate mineral composition to revive without regenerative intervention. Soils are part of our planet's carbon cycle, which limits the amount of CO2 in the air and regulates the climate. The take-home here is that CO2 in the soil reacts with rock dust to form bicarbonate and calcium carbonate. Bicarbonate is soluble in water and will eventually make its way into the ocean where it counteracts ocean acidification. Calcium carbonate is a solid mineral that can store carbon for millions of years. 80% of all carbon on Earth is stored in rocks as calcium carbonate. So rock dust remineralization of soils takes advantage of bioenhancing the most abundant carbon sink on the planet to passively remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere while also improving soil fertility. Fertility that makes plants and trees grow taller with thicker trunks and stems, bigger and more abundant leaves, and improved nutritional status. There's so much impact we can have on our environment with just the right sprinkle of rock dust, which is why I'm thrilled to introduce you to Joanna Campy, founder of the nonprofit organization Remineralize the Earth. She has devoted her life to the powerful work these minerals can do and is co-editor of the go-to book on rock dust called Geotherapy. Joanna, thanks for joining us and sharing your passion on rock dust remineralization.
So I am founder and executive director of an organization called Remineralize the Earth, which has been around a very long time advocating for the use of finely ground rock dust to regenerate soils and forests, grow nutrient-dense food, and sequester carbon, stabilize the climate. And so my organization is, we report on everything that's going on all over the world that has to do with remineralization and enhanced weathering. And we have the only research database online which is dedicated solely to remineralization and enhanced weathering. So we have hundreds of studies. And so basically, this idea is really to imitate nature's way of creating soils, because we know that you need organic matter if you want to regenerate soils. So compost is a household word. But how are soils formed? Soils are formed throughout millennia with, yes, organic matter and inorganic matter. And that is rocks which are crushed by the glaciers, volcanic eruptions, and alluvial deposits over thousands of years. And we can imitate that process. So it's a natural process. It's a extraordinary, simple way to create soils, and it's a key to moving away from conventional agriculture into regenerative agriculture. And the wonderful thing about it is that it goes with biochar, with all biologicals, not just compost. It is a great strategy to get those minerals into your soils and into the foods we eat. We suffer health-wise because we're not getting those minerals right now in the foods that we eat. And if we do, it will make a huge difference for the health of people and the planet.
Fabulous. Thank you, Joanna. Tom?
Yes, sure. My name's Tom Vanacore. I'm founder and one of the partners of Rock Dust Local with my wife, Joan Weber. And we've been working on this project for about 25 years. I've known Joanna Campe almost that long, I would say. And I agree with everything that she says wholeheartedly. At the same time, we're trying to regenerate the soils and build nutrient-dense food and give alternative to synthetic fertilizers. We're also on a long-term strategy to try to stabilize the temperate zones, meaning stabilize the climate. And this has really been at the foundation of remineralization since its inception, as envisioned by John Hamaker back in the early 1980s.
We have a program, Let's Remineralize Science Ed K through 12, on our website to teach kids, about the source of food they eat and do experiments with rock dust. Basically, we have a whole system of industrial agriculture that needs to change. And there's certainly a movement across the whole United States to make that happen and move towards regenerative agriculture. And I'd say, it's organic. We've talked a lot about organic. Now we're talking about going beyond organic, because even organic agriculture did not necessarily use rock dust and have the minerals and the trace elements that we need. There are up to 70 minerals and trace elements that are needed by our body, needs to be in the food that we're eating. And, just to give you an example of a lot of industrial agriculture have problems with insect infestations. Insects are nature's recyclers. They're going after weak plants. So when you add rock dust and, silica, all those minerals, the forests are so healthy and strong and resist diseases and resist drought. And that's very important for California, for example. They become more drought resistant as well.
Well, basalt is sort of one of the oldest rocks on the surface of the earth. Originally, at the very foundation of the earth, basalt covered most of the surface. And so one of the early relationships between plants and minerals came about through the action of mycorrhizal fungi, in other words, beneficial microbes. And so because of this long evolutionary relationship between plants, biology, and minerals, basalt seems to be particularly suited to growing plants in the present day because essentially it was baked into the DNA of plants and their biological symbionts. In other words, the biology that helps plants grow. It has many of the macronutrients such as calcium, magnesium, and many of the essential micronutrients that are required for highly functioning plants. And that's why it's good for remineralization, because it has what it needs to grow plants in an evolutionary sense. Well, the best way to put it into your soils is apply it directly to the ground. I think that if you had a choice, you would put it out with compost and perhaps biochar, another source of carbon, to try to get the minerals and the microbes in close proximity to each other. And it's the combination of carbon, minerals, and microbes that really makes all the difference in biologic systems. So if you can get those three elements together, rock dust, compost, biochar, humates, any of those forms of carbon, and put them in proximity to growing plants, you've pretty much done what's necessary.
And I think you can see why we refer to it as geotherapy, not geoengineering. Geoengineering is just, trying to come up with a trick. But ecological systems are so complex. So whatever we do, it has to be the most natural possible to be integrated so that these systems are not only disturbed, but brought back, to the state they should be, like the what I used to say decades ago was a blueprint to recreate Eden.
Get real.